Welcome everyone to the Dark Impact Attack. That's right, it's your Dark Impact Attack. This is the VBC. I'm the vet, Jamie Williams. Dark Vet. This is my tag team partner, Dark Brandon. Here comes the not the hot tag, but the dark tag. Dark. How are you doing, Dark Brandon?
Oh, feeling very dark. It's a dark night.
Yeah, I like the sound of that. Someone should make a movie or a comic book.
I'm dark laughing right now.
Sound like the Dark Shockmaster. And we got the Dark Chat here. The chat joining us very dark. Even on the West Coast, it's dark. It's getting dark now. It's actually light outside. That's fine. Who do we have with us tonight?
Let's see. Our dark chat is joined by Dark Chris Winland.
Ooh,
So we got Dark Lab Rat.
yeah,
We got Dark Liz.
she's always dark.
Yeah,
It's a
but she's
dark
extra dark
trio.
tonight. But it's extra dark tonight.
Extra. There's a shadow over Dark Liz. That's right. All right. I don't know why we were doing that. It's just because right before we went live, Brandon made the dark comment, so I just went with it. Oh man, yeah, we didn't even have any particular. Well, I don't know. I guess we got Rosemary on the episode later, so we'll talk about that, which is kind of funny. But other than that, oh, Dark Gam Wolfers just arrived.
Dark Gam. Yep.
He's
Keeping it
riding.
dark.
He's riding the trains. You know, like Steven Seagal in Under Siege 2, Dark Territory.
Oh, do you ever play Final Fantasy 3/Final Fantasy 6?
Yeah.
There's a particularly dark period in that game where you fought a dark enemy known as the Phantom Train.
The Phantom Train. He had to use a Phoenix down on it.
Or you
Yeah.
could drop it on its head with a dark suplex.
Dark suplex. and yeah, and who delivers that suplex?
Goldberg 98, pal.
Exactly. Exactly. It all comes full circle.
There was actually, did you ever see the promo he cut where he said he took his name from that character?
No, I didn't. I was wondering why, because I'm pretty sure that wasn't his real name, but it could have been his real name. So,
Yeah, he actually said that on, I think it was like sometime in 08, 09.
all right. Well, good for him. I don't know if I like him more or less. Now because of that. Oh, so here we are for another episode of your Dark Impact Attack, or it's just a regular Impact Attack, but we just have some fun at the beginning. I can't keep up that voice the whole episode. Maybe one day, if there's something like, like if some wrestling show does like a truly ridiculous, even Halloween Havoc is too goofy to really take seriously these days, so I don't think it would work. But um, yeah, maybe if there's a reason, maybe one day you could do the whole show like that. But yeah, I'm not gonna keep it up for now. Yeah, this is it's an Impact Attack. We got some Impact to talk about. Not a great deal. It's another one of those sort of like, I don't know, when does Emergence happen? Is that happening this weekend or is that next weekend?
I know it's not this weekend. Let me go take a look. There's a quick little Google search will get that fixed for us.
Because if it's not this weekend, then it's another show where it's not a go home and it's not a post show. It's just another random show in the middle.
Okay, we got a ways away for that. August 30th.
August 30th. I thought I saw something coming up for August 30th, but I didn't remember if it was Emergence or if it was going to be one of those ones where we have Emergence and then 2 weeks later we have another one, which also happens in Impact many times, as we know from covering it. So, yep, it is just a random episode of Impact. Not a lot of highlights, not a lot of special, um, news or information about it. So we kind of got to wing it if we want to give content for the channel.
Well, to be fair to them, at least it's kind of like an episode of Impact they're trying to build to. Trying to. That's the key word.
Well, they mentioned Emergence. That's a step in the right direction. And they're trying to set up contender match for things. We'll get to all that. We could talk about a couple of other things to start with. Number one, a man that never worked at Impact is Kevin Sullivan. I mean, at least not that Kevin Sullivan. Because there's confusingly two Kevin Sullivans in the wrestling space in the past 20 years. But
to be fair, Kevin Sullivan, the Kevin Sullivan actually did appear on camera in TNA.
Right. But not in a I don't think he was like in a
it was a one-off. It was a one-off, but still.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, the Kevin Sullivan, of course, recently sadly passed away. Just can't really, not only can I literally not overstate his importance to wrestling because I can't even grasp it, but I really haven't done even the research on stuff. It's just one of those things you just know. And then when you look into it, you're like, wow, even more than I thought. And I already thought he did a lot. And then there are always things that would surprise you if you just weren't of the time, I didn't see I didn't see Kevin Sullivan on a regular basis until I was watching WCW in around 1995. It's like my first memory of him was just in that Taskmaster gimmick. And I didn't even see the original Dungeon of Doom and Hogan stuff that he was doing. Like I kind of just saw him. I remember him fighting Chris Benoit in a bathroom. That's what I remember about Kevin Sullivan, like when I first saw him. But
for some reason, they loved that specific bathroom in that specific arena in Baltimore.
It must have maybe either it was cleaner than a normal bathroom or it was grimier than a normal bathroom. Either way, I could see it. But so that's like what I remember my first thing seeing him. But of course, I'm talking about seeing him like in action. But when I was a kid, I was just, long story short, just WWF kid. That's what I got. I'm from California. A lot of the territory stuff didn't come to my TV. I didn't have cable the whole time when I was growing up. So mostly, I mean, I did because I watched, WWF on cable sometimes, like primetime wrestling, but I didn't know other wrestling existed because I was very young. But I would see magazines, like the Pro Wrestling Insiders and The Wrestler and like all those like after stuff and the black and white photos. And I would see guys that weren't in the WWF and I'd be like, who's that guy? So I would always see Ric Flair, with that big gold belt. I always see, guys like Abdullah the Butcher or whatever. And I'd see Kevin Sullivan doing the, face painted, eyes rolling in the back with the X on his head. And I was like, oh, that's a creepy looking guy, So like, but I didn't learn the breadth of his influence and all that stuff until much later. But yeah, just truly like one of the most important people in, we like I said on the wreckage, it's like we don't even get to be having conversations about the Wyatts without Kevin Sullivan, probably. Like he was doing that gimmick and in a more, in my opinion, realistic way, not only in a more realistic presentation, but just to the sense that people really believe that this guy's a devil worshiper, that kind of thing. So I don't know, but I talked a little bit about this already. But Brandon, if there's anything you want to say about Kevin Sullivan and his career, please, the floor is yours.
No, he's absolutely one of the most influential and pioneering creative minds in professional wrestling, period. What he contributed, what he created, what he produced is like it set the tone for what we saw and what was built on. I mean, the dude was absolutely brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
And
even up until recently, um,
and another thing too I want to say about him is that he was like somebody who was able to actually put personal issues aside for the best of business. I mean, he put the world title on the dude who stole his wife from him because that was what was best for business.
right?
Granted, same guy didn't trust Sullivan, but Sullivan was doing what he thought was the right thing for business. And he was
Right.
able to put that personal stuff aside. And how many people can you say that about?
Well, I mean, other than people who were kind of forced to do that, not many. Like Kevin Sullivan was the booker; he could have not done it, so he did. Um, but uh, I was just going to add real quick about I forgot what I was going to say now, but I was just going to add one little extra layer to what you were saying about you know oh, now I remember. It was like I was saying, even to this day, like, or until recently, he had his podcast, and I didn't listen to the podcast, but that's no offense to Kevin Sullivan. It's only because like I listened to so many, and there's only so many hours in the day or whatever, and I never picked that one up. But I would hear stuff from it because Joe Feeney will always talk about what he's what's coming up on his Creative Control Network and stuff, and he was still offering like you know ideas on what I would do with the bloodline and everything. So like he stayed up on stuff and was still like thinking about things in terms of the way a booker would. So I was just, gonna accentuate your point on being a creative mind that never really stopped being creative. It's hard not to. It's hard not to if you've ever thought about it in that capacity to just put that in a box. It's really hard to just be a fan. These days, I don't know about you, Brandon, but once you've been there and kind of done it, it's if somebody can make you feel like a fan again, that's how you know they are the top of the business. Like they are the best in the world at what they're doing. When they can just make you forget, oh yeah, that's right, this is a worked match or whatever, like when you're into it. It's if they can do that, so
Yes, somebody like he was.
otherwise go ahead.
Yeah, so yeah, somebody who's like part of the creative behind like the NWO, behind Goldberg, and they make that person excited as a fan. Yeah, you've done something right.
Yeah. So that's unfortunate because even though 74 is a pretty long life, it seemed like there was still some gas in the tank. So unfortunate. We may have been robbed of some future stuff here. So that's disappointing.
He would have made a good consultant for whoever was willing to reach out to him.
Yep. Hopefully he did. Hopefully under the table people were reaching out to him and asking him things. And who knows? Maybe they were. But I was pointing out on the wreckage wrongly because it was one of those, like, I don't know if you want to call it a Freudian slip or whatever, but it's just one of those things where your brain replaces the name of another person. And I kept saying Jerry Graham at first. I was meaning to say Eddie Graham, and I thought my brain thought I was saying Eddie Graham, but until I was corrected in the chat by Zane Vicious, he said Eddie Graham in the chat. I was like, yes, of course, Eddie Graham is who I meant to say. But I was talking about his time in Florida under that learning tree and taking those ideas that Eddie Graham had that were so influential in the modern era of what we know of wrestling today, and like taking those and bringing those with him, and so on and so forth, and spreading that knowledge. It's kind of like the way the knowledge and philosophy that I learned from, Rip Rogers, all those times, hours sitting in, class and learning and stuff. Like, I try to bring that onto these shows. Like, I'm kind of talking through a lot of stuff that, I learned, which I would give credit every time, if it's something I learned directly from Rip, or all the people that he learned from, including Kevin Sullivan, because Kevin Sullivan had the book when he was in WCW, and he probably worked with Kevin. I look forward greatly to hearing what Rip says on his show about Kevin, any stories and things that he'll be able to share about his personal time with Kevin Sullivan.
Yeah, when you put it like that, telling a story of how these guys go in like to different places and learn from each other, it's like that's one of those things that was kind of lost, like as far as a extremely large scale when the territory days die out, is like you have these different regions with different styles and different ideas, and you have guys going from different territories to different regions, bringing those ideas and figuring, okay, we can take from this and this will work here, but it won't really work, but this part won't work, but we can take this part and just, like, man, that whole trading of ideas, and man, that's kind of become more of like now more of like on a global scale instead of like a American regional scale. We still kind of have that to an extent.
The only thing that's different is sort of the quality, because you have people now that, well, to use Rip Rogers as an example, he will always say that he was never trained. Like, he learned everything, like, from being a mark all the way just getting in the ring, and having to learn on the job, because there was no wrestling schools, right? And if there was a wrestling school, it might be something like, the stories that Undertaker says of like Buzz Sawyer, like taking your money, saying he's going to show you some stuff, and then taking your money and disappearing, or something like that. Like those kind of things. But there wasn't just like a school. And then at some point, when schools became a thing, then people that had, some whatever marginal level of training could open up a school and, take kids' money or whatever, teach them how to bump, kind of do those kind of things, and then send them on their merry way. And the proliferation of that necessarily means that the quality of people that come from that is diluted. When they were trying to weed people out of the business and keep people out of the business, you really had to be dedicated to make it. Famously, Hulk Hogan leg broke, Hiro Matsuda, yada, yada, yada. Everybody's heard these same stories. But now it's like, well, if my wrestling school needs to survive, I need you to not quit so you can keep paying me money, and then meh. So,
but that also kind of on that same side of, or opposite side of the coin, that kind of forces you to provide a quality training to where they're willing to put that time, money, and effort into, to like, okay, we're going to dedicate ourselves to this craft because the training we're getting is actually good quality training.
Right. However, that's not really where I was going with it.
Oh, sorry.
Where I was going with it was, even though you're right about that part, and that's where probably a lot of the good talent we get today goes from, a lot of those people can be weekend warriors, take a few wrestling classes or whatever, and now they start putting themselves on the indies, lying about their level of training, getting themselves booked, and this is why all these guys at all these indie shows that you see is fucking rotten. And then that goes on, and then you go on the indies for a period of years. I mean, this happened for decades. That you go on the period of indies for years, you're that local guy, all of a sudden now you're in your 40s smoking a cigarette or whatever. All right, kid, let me tell you, like, this is what we're gonna, but you never learn shit, and you sucked, and now you're telling the other young kids that are trying to learn and all this other stuff, and then this dilutes the quality of wrestling across the nation and the world now, because you've had so many non-credible people teaching people, and that's where you get the bad habits, and that's why people get called indie-rific, and this is all these things. You get a lot of people that see flipping on television and say, I can do a flip, and then they become wrestlers, and so on and so forth, and there's very, 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 very few that are getting that full fundamental treatment. So the learning trees, as you know, like with any tree, the farther out the branches go, the more brittle they are and the more susceptible they are to snapping off in a strong breeze or anything like that. And that's kind of how we ended up, with our current state.
We haven't kept the tree pruned enough.
No, we haven't. And that's simply because there's an industry for wrestling schools. And the industry does not necessarily, the wrestling school does not benefit necessarily by their students' success. It's just, can I keep getting people to pay me money? And that's a thing now. So that's what I mean when I'm saying, like, the learning trees of back then, when Kevin Sullivan is sitting there under Eddie Graham and he's bringing that. If I didn't have, like, when the business raised Rip, this is what I was getting at. When the business raised Rip into what he is, and he learned from making all these mistakes and learning things the hard way, going everywhere, going to work in, England, Japan, all those places, Puerto Rico, just doing all those things, having all those experiences, learning all the aspects of the business that he learned or whatever, and then training groups of people. Then, like people like me coming in, sitting under that learning tree, learning that, like, and I still didn't learn everything he knew. I just learned I just learned whatever I was able to learn. And then now I'm wanting to, like, impart that, in the same way that that he was imparting it. This is the only chance I get being on the show like this, to talk about certain things and everything like that. That's my way of giving back to wrestling whatever I got from it, and hoping that the future will become better. And in the spirit of guys like Kevin Sullivan, who, when they're gone, someone has to teach the things that Kevin Sullivan knew. So everybody that Kevin Sullivan taught, it's, even if it was like him teaching Rip something that Rip taught me and I didn't even know he learned it from Kevin Sullivan. So I'm like the little pieces of Kevin Sullivan that are now in my brain. Like that's what I'm here for. I wouldn't be here without even Kevin Sullivan, is my point that I'm trying to ultimately make.
Yeah, that knowledge and experience never goes away. He might die, but what he contributed doesn't.
Right. So when everybody asks me, how can you watch all this wrestling and do all these shows? That's my answer. Because Kevin Sullivan, that's why. And many others, countless others. I couldn't count them. I don't even know them, but they're here. And that's the beauty of it. And it's up to us to try to outweigh. I mean, everybody's free to go and listen to the Mark podcasters or the Dirt Sheet podcasters or any of those people. You're free to do that if you find that entertaining, and you're free to spend your money on that. I just hope you appreciate how important what you have here at HMG is, with the people that have been under those trees, and we're trying to cultivate that into not only knowledge for people that would like to have a future in the business, and also just but entertainment for you. If all you're interested in is hearing people talk about wrestling, hopefully we're entertaining enough. But every show I do, no matter whether it's with Brandon or Ray or Jimmy or anybody, it's so that, like, I in the back of my mind, I'm like, this could be forever. So anybody could find these forever. Anybody could find these shows one day and go through and just listen. And if you were like a potential independent wrestler, and if you can learn any lessons or whatever, or even just get some entertainment, those kind of things are like one of the motivating factors of doing it. Just the hope that it's still knowledge for anybody that wants it. You may have not asked for it, Maybe you'll stumble upon it. But just know that it's like, instead of saying, who did these guys ever beat, just think this is in part of the learning trees of history, dating all the way back to the beginnings of pro wrestling, So, Sandlot aside, if I guess we can there's another small thing I think we should mention, and then we'll get to Chris Winland's question. But you may have saw that recently Scott D'Amore did an interview. I don't know with who, I forget, but they asked him about his his departure from the company. Did you see that piece, Brandon, or anything about it?
I did not see that interview. I knew he was doing like this reviving Maple Leaf Wrestling. That's all I knew.
That's probably what he want to go on there to promote. But of course they were going to ask him about it, and he didn't like. I saw the article that transcripted it. I didn't listen to the interview, but and after just reading the little bit that I read, I'm glad I didn't listen to it. I was just like, I could see how this would just be irritating to me, the way because even in this small clip, he was still like putting himself over or whatever. But like, so, but it was, essentially, he didn't actually offer any answers like that we would want to know about the reason. He just said they wanted to go in a different direction, but he did dispel the idea that people were saying that he tried to like buy the company, or like any of those rumors that were going around that about what happened or why he said it was just simply that they had different ideas for the direction of the company. Maybe there was something to that budget, like he wanted more money for it. But I mean, like I said back then, it's like, well, if that was really the issue, maybe that's what they told you the issue was. But if that's the issue, they could just say, well, no, you can't have any more money, but you can continue to work here. Like, I don't know why you have to fire a guy for requesting a budget increase. If that was the only thing wrong and everything else was perfect, that's not how things go usually. So
yeah, it's usually like, no, sorry, we're not doing it. And you just, okay. And you move on.
yeah, can you imagine going up to your boss and just being like, sir, I've been working hard, and I think I'm worthy of a raise. And your boss being like, well, not only can you not have a raise, but tell your story walking and clean out your locker. Like, I just don't.
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah. We had a whole thing of work for you scheduled today, but nah, throw that in the trash, get out. Yeah, there's always politics involved. So even if he knew the politics and didn't want to say what they were, or if he got kayfabed by them and they told him one thing and that's all he has to go on, even if he suspects that it's not on the up and up, he just doesn't know what the truth is, so he can't comment. It's all speculation. We don't know. Maybe that. So yeah, no, just thought I'd mention it because it's TNA related. Not really any other major news. And so I guess we could get to Chris Winland's question that he asked at the start. Chris Winland says, do you guys think that women's wrestling should have their own show, be it WWE or any company? Could such a show work if booked properly? Please share some insights, opinions on today's women in the ring. We talked a little bit about this recently. I feel like we talked about it. Maybe I didn't talk about it here, but that's, maybe I have too many learning tree branches out in the podcasting thing, and I just don't remember where I talked about it. But I feel like we were talking about women's wrestling at some point in the past couple months, where I made the point that I'm more interested in women's wrestling as like, well, again, as like a developing, like a creative, I guess, like not so much creative like here's your storyline, but like creative as in okay, I'm seeing the sort of, we're still in like the early era of women being taken seriously as wrestlers. Do you remember having this conversation, or is this not familiar to you?
Possibly, it's kind of reminding me a little bit.
Like 10 years ago, we're still looking at Divas era. Is really
Like,
only
yeah, this is like when they first brought, like, okay, we're doing the whole three factions. We're bringing up what was it, Sasha, Charlotte, and Paige
right.
together, and then it was what, the Bellas and Alicia Fox, and then what was the other one again?
I don't know. It was just like the rest of them. They were like put in a. Was it?
So I remember like Paige, Sasha, and Charlotte were called the Submission Sorority, and then they had to change it because, oh, that's the name of a porn.
Right. Or was it them? And which one was Team Bad? Because Team Bad was one of them too, wasn't it? Or was that
Oh yeah, I
later?
remember
Or
that.
am I confusing them with a later thing? I know what you're talking
No,
about,
no,
though.
there was three. That might have been one. Let me check.
Well, anyway, the point is that was not that long ago. You know, relatively. We're talking about like 8, 9 years ago. And before that, we're still getting like pillow fights. You know, in the 2010s, we're still getting like pillow fight matches, lingerie matches, those type of things.
Okay, so it was Becky Lynch, Charlotte, and Paige, who was the Submission Sorority,
Yeah.
and then Team Bella, Alicia Fox and the Bella Twins, and then it was Sasha Banks, Naomi, and Tamina.
Mm-hmm. That's Team Bad. All right, got it. Yeah. So, and this started at NXT because Hunter is like, he's a wrestler. He's a wrestling fan. He doesn't probably have any real interest in bra and panty matches, like as a wrestling fan. Like a lot of wrestling fans don't. That's more like sort of the creeps. But uh, so
The
like
same
I
the,
get
the same kind of creeps who would pay, lots of
uh,
money for used gear.
yes, you would buy used gear. Perhaps you would order apartment wrestling videos or custom
Mo-
matches, say.
monetize your creeps, pal.
Hmm. Yeah, so I get it, but I don't really think that's, I don't think that's what necessarily Vince had in mind. I think that's just what he wanted to see. I think he wanted to, I don't know what his ultimate goal was, but it certainly wasn't the empowerment and you know, the betterment of women in sports. Surely wasn't that. That was not his motivation in any sense. So with Triple H and NXT, he let the people that he scouted and the people that he had brought in, they were serious about wrestling. So that's where you get your Becky's, Charlotte's, Sasha's, Bailey's, so on and so forth. Those were the main ones that they called the horsewomen around that time. And there was others like Paige, like you mentioned, Natalia was there. You had a few people like that, and they were wrestlers. They were women. There was no law against them being attractive. You could be attractive and still want to look like you were trying to compete in a sport. Um,
In fact,
that
in my
kind.
opinion, that's like the total package for like the ideal professional wrestler.
Well, yeah. Well, like, rather than take a woman that had no intentions of ever being a wrestler and making her bump, why not take women that are attractive that wanted to be wrestlers? Seems like a no-brainer to anybody, but yet that's not what. Maybe those women are less agreeable for people like Vince and Ace. So they'd rather people that are going to be a fish out of water and need help. Does this sort of start to make sense when you put the puzzle pieces together? It's like you have these women that are in a confusing world that they don't understand. Like, isn't that all kind of part of that whole, you know what? Let's not go down that dark road. Let's just stick to the question.
Stay
My
away from
point
that
is,
rabbit hole, pal.
right. My point is, um, women's wrestling as being taken seriously and not an attraction like it was in the early days where it was like, we got this whole wrestling card and midgets and women. Instead of that, or instead of pudding matches or other stuff, now it's like, well, these women are just wrestling here on the card. That's a relatively new thing. So with women's wrestling, I'm interested in it in a way, like I'm watching it more closely, you know. I'm seeing as how they're developing. Yeah, they're not there yet when it comes to when you compare them to like men's wrestling or whatever, because just the wrestling's always been men's wrestling. So now women are trying to catch up to it, and it's interesting to watch. Maybe one day they'll be right on par.
Look at how the WNBA's like how big they've grown in the last 8 months.
Yep. If you get people that are good enough, then it raises the sport up. So anyway, I say that, and I find that interesting. However, just because I think like that, I'm not like everybody else. Everybody else is a little bit behind the times. So I don't think we're ready for all women's wrestling shows because, you know, we've seen it. We've seen Glow. We've seen, which is looked at as a joke. It's like a joke of wrestling. And even Women of Wrestling is just kind of like redone Glow, like with less Saturday Night Live skits. I think that's an all women's show that you can watch, but it's not particularly good. And the presentation, nothing against the women in it. I'm just saying, like, the presentation of it, like, it's even still got the guy from Glow, and it seems goofy and almost like a rib. Now over in Japan, they have all women's promotions. Like, you know, famously, that's like one of the places that really does that. I don't know if any of those businesses are like particularly on fire. Certainly not like, you know, not like, say, you know, when men's wrestling in Japan was hot. I don't think any women's promotions are on that. And even Stardom struggles financially at times. They've been bought and sold a couple of times recently. It's rough. And then, you know, there's the whole Rossi Ogawa thing. Him starting another promotion, kind of like, you know, kind of like it when All Japan wrestlers split off and formed Noah in 2000. You know, like, here's the women's version called Marigold, and he's taking all these people with him, and, you know, they're running opposition. But it's also like, without casting aspersion on an entire nation of people, but, you know, Japan has its own pervert culture as well, which is a large reason why this exists over there. On the one hand, it's really because, in terms of sports, which they still treat wrestling as a sport, like they still present it, treat it. It's a sport there. They don't break kayfabe. They're not doing interviews where they just talk about, you know, working with somebody, and like, they're not doing these press conferences like Triple H or whatever and Tony Khan and just exposing it immediately after the show. They still, in public facing, they still all kayfabe. And so in that sense, you don't really have, up until recently, you wouldn't have women in a sports. You wouldn't have like a WNBA game in the middle of an NBA game. It's two different leagues. You're not going to draft a woman player because there's a league for them. So that's kind of how they treated women's wrestling. There's the women's leagues and the men's leagues, and that's it, you know? And sometimes you might have a women's match on a men's show, but that would really only be the promotion trying to help get awareness for the women's promotion, because they were probably struggling to get awareness, right?
Right. And as you're talking about that, like, one thing that started coming to mind was, what if you had something happening, like, okay, say like you split like the men's in wrestling, the men's, women, and the women's division. And all of a sudden you had somebody in the women's division that, say, like a China, coming up and is absolutely dominating. Okay, let's see how she does against a man. That's an attraction. That's something you can make money off of. That's something that can draw.
Right. And it should be a big deal. And even to this day, I still would consider that if you're doing an intergender match, not to never do it, but to make it a big deal and make it seem like something that people don't want to happen. Like
Make
we're
it
trying to
matter.
stop this from happening.
Make
Like
it
we
matter.
can't do this. The whole story should be we can't do this. This is inappropriate. No, no, no. And then we have to get people like, hey, well, I want to see it. Like we have to get the fans to say, hey, I want to see that. And then we have to have the female wrestler like, please let me kick this guy's ass. Like, please, I know I'm not supposed to, be in your, in the men's division, but I have to get my hands on this guy and all this stuff. And you have to make it so that the build is even making the match happen, not just a bunch of stuff like phony wrestling angles and stuff, but you have to like make it seem like it's a political, like I have to break the gender boundaries to make this happen because this guy has this much heat with me that I'm willing to even get my ass kicked if I can just get a piece of him. That is the whole story you have to tell even to this day, in my opinion. And I think my opinion is right.
And that's more rooted in reality, and that's something people can relate to.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. That being said, even what I'm trying to say is everything, even though there are all women's promotions and all women's shows that may work for them, even though sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes they still struggle, even though they do it. I don't know what, these are independently owned companies. They're not like publicly, I can't read Ice Ribbon's quarterly financial report, like I don't know what it is, but I think the way women's wrestling is now, it's not going to work in the United States to do something like that. Not on a major level, not even WWE. I don't think they'd be able to do it. I think that it works the way it is, where they're just part of the show. I think you just have to find the good balance, and just like with anything, you go with what's hot. If your metrics and your stuff is telling you that one of the women's angles is hotter, like say Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan, for example, like if that's hotter than, one of the mid-card acts or even one of the main acts, then you have to treat that as such on the show. But that doesn't mean that you have to like, you don't want to put women in the affirmative action position where it's like, well, we have to have so much time allotted for women on the card. If you're not able to give women TV time, make sure that they're getting reps and ring time in other places like the dark matches or the main event tapings or whatever on the house shows. Make sure that the talent is getting there so that when they do get a hot angle, they'll be polished and ready in the ring, and everything will be clicking and firing on all cylinders. But I just don't think we're ready for to answer Chris's question. No, I don't think they should have their own show right now. No, I don't think a show would work even if it's booked properly, because it's the same thing as if a tree falls in the forest, no one's around. You could have the best women's weekly show ever, and if nobody knows about it, or if they just say women's wrestling, I ain't watching that, they won't know how good it is. Oh, you're not going to get Disco Inferno to watch a show that's all women, for example, if you tell him, even if it could be the best and he would like all the stories and all the matches and all the chicks would be hot, but if you just tell him it's a women's wrestling show, he's not going to watch it. And there's a lot of people that are like that. There's a lot of people that aren't. There's a lot of perverts. There's a lot of haters. There's a lot of perverts. There's a lot of normal people in the middle. But there's already a oversaturation of wrestling, and trying to split off. I think you would have to like, basically what I'm saying is, for that to happen, it would have to be to the point where women's wrestling is in such high demand that people are complaining that they're not getting enough, to the point that you can see it. Like, You can see sales are up on these things, um, ratings are up on these segments, so on and so forth. It's going to have to be a thing you can't ignore. If you're just thinking whether you should just do it or not for the sake of doing it, then that means it's definitely not time to do it. Would you agree with that?
I do agree. I do feel like that there we are kind of reaching like a level of certainly an increased attention and demand for women's sports, but it's not quite there yet. We got a ways to go, but there's definitely the tide is turning.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, it looks like.
Yeah, and even if you look at like, even if you want to use the WNBA as the example you brought up and that Gam Wolfers brings up, bro, the WNBA is like their numbers are only good compared to their past numbers because their past numbers were abysmal. They've gone from abysmal to bad. You know, that's that's a trend in the right direction.
Right.
So
The key there is where do they go from there?
right, and that's because a white woman showed up and started balling. Now, if Caitlin Clark's legs get cut off in some horrible accident, the numbers are going back down. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. It's because of a star. It's a star that they can put the league on, same way they did with Michael Jordan in the 80s.
Well, and to be fair, too, she also had kind of a rival in Angel Reese. Like they kind of were able to build off that.
Right. But a lot of people, let's put it this way. In everyday life, like me just minding my own business and going about the world and people around me and me trying to avoid talking to them or whatever, I still hear Caitlin Clark's name. No one talks about Angel Reese. So I'm just taking the temperature of everybody at large based on extrapolating from my experience. And that's the idea. It's like you have to get a star. For a while, they had Becky Lynch. For certain reasons, that sort of petered out over time, but maybe none so much more than because it was family time. So, but even so, I still think that even if she stayed, they would have just found a way to fuck it up. I mean, even her rise as the man wasn't perfect. There were lots of things I saw that would have worked even better that they never did. And, if WWE can't have something good without running it into the ground. So we'll have to see who's going to be the next emerging women's star. But I don't think we're ready yet for an all women show in America. It's my thought.
Once she gets the reps in, I could see like Jade Cargill being an enormous star. But again, she has to get the reps in. Unfortunately, she never really did at AEW. She was there for a while, but as much, she didn't get much ring time while she was there.
Well, all of her ring time, we saw it.
Yeah, that was the problem.
And she and they were like halfway through. It's not like they were putting her in there with good hands. Like there was a good percentage of her matches where there was a good percentage of her matches in AEW where she was the brains of the match.
Yeah, and you're not going to have
learn in a different way from doing that.
Yeah, to be fair, yes, that is one way of learning and getting better. But at that point, she needed to be in there with people who were much better than her, who could guide her, who could teach her. So that when she got put into the positions where she was with somebody who was needed to be carried, she had a little bit more experience in being carried to be able to carry somebody else.
Yep. And, who was that going to be? It wasn't, they didn't have nobody like that.
Britt Baker?
Yes, please. Britt Baker's barely better than Jade Cargill. Even after all this time. When Bobby Lashley is a hot topic right now because everybody's talking about his contract and his comments about Triple H and Vince and how he feels about their individual booking or whatever, or his relationship with them. But when he came in, they just said, all right, you're married to Fit Finlay now.
I do remember that. And at the time, I thought, actually, that was a great pairing because Finlay was a great veteran mind to help guide and teach him and to work with him.
Right. And to tie that back to our topic, he's responsible for a lot of the women's wrestling, even in the Divas era. It's like, get these Divas ring ready. That's Fit Finley's job, right? Probably a rib on Fit Finley. And just like any smart rib, you don't sell it and you throw it back in their face. So
By doing a fantastic job with it.
right. Taking somebody like a fucking Candice Michelle and getting her in a passable match on television, yeah, okay, Fit Finley's the greatest. So they
yeah,
latch that.
yeah. The work that Fit Finley did with those divas during that era, that's commendable.
Commendable, more than commendable. We don't have enough. We don't have enough words in the English language for
I,
what that
I will
is.
say too. To be fair to the divas, they kind of felt like they wanted to prove themselves and actually busted their asses with Finley.
That's right.
And
so that
I
guy.
believe Candice Michelle was one of those.
No, I know she was, and that's why I'm saying that putting him with a guy like Lashley, it was because he could just teach on the job, but it was a program, and Jade didn't really have a lot of programs, and if she did have a lot of programs, because she was having to go over every time, and if she did have a lot of programs, they nobody on a Fit Finley level, Paige didn't get there until too late, um, like Deeb wasn't really there. Like she at first at the early part of um at the early part of Jade's run, she was kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out because she was working NWA and other things too. So she didn't really get extended time with Jade. If Jade, I know Jade was always working on stuff outside of the ring. I know that, but it's I don't know to what degree it was. I don't, obviously maybe not enough in the fans' eyes. So I know it's not her work ethic we're questioning, but we're just talking about we see somebody as a star, uh, a potential star that can, maybe move women into another level, but I don't trust the WWE to do it for various reasons.
Here's a question I have about Jade's training. How much ring time has she had with Natty?
I don't know. It could be more than zero,
Like,
especially now.
like you would think that would be like, okay, your spare time, your training, whatever you do, you and Natty, you and Natty, you and Natty.
Well,
Like if you want to get Jade Cargill ready, why is she not training with Natty?
I don't know if she is or isn't now. So I can't comment on that, but
It's possible we have not seen or heard anything to kind of confirm or deny it.
well, Moose is training with Natty, so
Really? I've not.
yeah. I thought you already knew that. Like that's
I mean,
he goes
I saw the
trains with those people.
I saw the
What's
Joe
up?
Hendry footage.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's like there's a group of people that all train together on their own time from various companies and have been for years. Uh,
Wow, I must have been out of the loop. This is news to me. I apologize, guys.
all right. Well, follow Moose Nation 69 on Instagram. And every once in a while, you can get a nice reel or a story or something. Show him going through some drills. Even Moose does drills. Like even now, he'll do drills with TJ and Natty, his little group. That there's Apollo Cruz is there. There's like a few different people that like just hang out, work out all the time. Um, but yeah. So anyway, I'm sure everybody's working hard, and I like to see the. I continue to watch with hopeful eyes the future of women's wrestling, but it's gonna take time.
Dude, that's a females trio right there.
Sure is. Yep, Ivy from well, formerly of Diamond Mine. Diamond Mine doesn't exist anymore per se, but yeah. All right. Well, that's a good segue because we go from talking about a former TNA champion and now we can start talking about TNA wrestling, if you can call it that. Here we are. It's the whatever episode this was. What's the date on this episode?
I believe it's the 8-8 edition.
8-8. All right. Well, speaking of 8, we couldn't start the show without a ketchup packet. Let's eat that real quick. There we
Yes,
go.
it's White Castle, but it's still Heinz.
All right, White Castle is fine. That's enough
And
ketchup for
and
3
just to
sliders.
And just to make sure, here's a
All
red
right.
one.
There's a red one. All right, you guys got that? All right. So now, this has a we're gonna start off with a suggestive video from Steph DeLander, implying, and it's got music underneath, just sexy music, implying that we're gonna get a sneak peek at at her honeymoon. So hey, talking about Divas era again. Let's get me bra and panties. Bra and panties, JR. So
Puppies!
There you go. That's how we started. And just to let you know that we're totally serious, the next thing we do, we have the system in the ring. They're in there for a promo to do the whole promo. Everybody gets a turn. I wasn't listening. Then Moose got a turn and I started listening. He says that he's going to take Santana out back and give him the old Yeller treatment next week. So I'm like, all right, okay. All right.
Cool. So match that could have been built to pay-per-view is happening next week.
Next week. Just, yeah. Unless there's some shenanigans, something like we'll just beat him up and not have a match. And we'll think we're getting off scot-free. And then Santino will say, oh, no.
Cage match.
Yeah, you get
something.
They're going to do something like that, probably. Or we'll just have a regular match and throw it away, like you said. Whatever it is, it's going to happen. And then we get, now here's something interesting. Jonathan Gresham with, you notice we started out the show doing the whole dark gimmick, but I'm not doing it now. I'm just saying Jonathan Gresham, just regular Jonathan Gresham, because it's regular Jonathan Gresham with Gia and no music underneath. He's very normal. He's just there in his gear and no mask and just ready to go.
Yeah, I was just sick for a little bit, but I'm good to go now.
Yeah, I'm fine. Well, you didn't even acknowledge that really. But here's the thing. So Kushida comes in and he gives him like a look, and he Jonathan Gresham offers the hand, and then Kushida thinks about it and then decides, no, I'm not going to shake your hand. The only thing that they did, which you probably saw it was brief, but there was an instant, what's normal about that? It's normal for him, Lab Rat. He has a very high collar, and or it could just be a normal size collar for a normal person, but because Jonathan Gresham is of different proportions, maybe it looks tall on him. But either way, yes, it's still normal for him. Yeah, so you probably caught this, but when Jonathan Gresham started talking, the camera was like, the focus went in and out very briefly, like it was distorted. Like there was some kind of like supernatural force in the room. Did you pick that up?
Right. Like it seemed like they're still trying to tell us. It looked like they're trying to do like a Jekyll and Hyde thing with him, where he has no idea what the other part of his personality is doing.
Right. Except it was a little more subtle than that. Like to the degree that if you, let's say you missed the entire gimmick and you just saw this, you wouldn't think twice about it. You would think TNA fucked up their production again. Like the camera went out of focus and there's like, oh, okay. But because it's Jonathan Gresham and we've been watching these vignettes and all this other bullshit that he's been doing, we recognize, okay, they're doing a thing here. So yeah, we'll see what comes of that. And then a digital exclusive of Santino and Speedball. Santino saying that at Emergence we're gonna have Ultimate X, and Mike Bailey's such a mark that he's like, even though I'm the champion, I want to be in the qualifying matches. If I can't, qualify for this, I don't deserve to be the X Division champion. So he's just going the full baby face, like,
Although to be fair for his character and trying to get himself over as a gimmick, if there's one person on that entire roster who would do that, who would it be?
Yeah, it'd be him. 100%. Well, we're not trying to be unfair to Mike Bailey. We're just saying what happened. So the first that leads into this, because people would probably have questions if they didn't mention this. So even though it's a digital exclusive, yet here it is on Access TV, and
Although
it's
to be fair, if again, I haven't seen a lot of their digital media or really any of their digital media, but like I'm not really against them putting like, one thing that of their digital media on camera and saying like, hey, this is our digital media thing, check this out, because I think that kind of helps drive, viewers to their social media platforms.
one would hope. So,
Again, one would hope, but we'll see.
I would say here's where the reason I keep bringing that up when they do that is because the word exclusive has a meaning in the English language. So you could use anything else that you could call it instead of digital exclusive. Because if it's showing up,
I do agree with. Okay, I do agree. I agree with you on that point. They could say like, hey, this is like, on our one of our digital media or one of our social media platforms. Follow us here to see more.
Yeah, it's very simple because, and especially with the NXT synergy, to use a corporate word that they got, the way NXT digital media teaser, there's that. You know how WWE does it? The NXT, they just put the border, they put the app they're using as the border of the segment. So you'll see like the black X in the corner like it was a post, or you'll see the IG picture if it's from IG. They just show you where they got it from without even saying it. That's all they have to do. If you say digital media exclusive and then you show it somewhere besides digital media, then it's not an exclusive. So just either call it a digital media teaser or do what the WWE does, or borrow their idea, which is no problem now because you guys are working together.
Yeah, and that aspect, I cannot disagree with you. You're 100% on
that. Well, let's see how 100% we are on this. Something versus Trent versus Bailey. So once again, the tag team partners have to fight each other. Like how many? These guys have had more matches against each other than they have as tag team. The winner qualifies for Ultimate X, including the champion. So, triple threat match. Any thoughts?
One thing they also established, like before the match started, the announcers established that if Mike Bailey does not win, then he vacates the title, and then the winner of the Ultimate X becomes the new X Division champion.
That's correct.
Yeah, I thought that there was a lot more story they could have done with this. Unfortunately, when we get to punching up, I didn't really change it up as much as I wish I could have. But I think they could have built to there was some meat on the bone they could have went with this, but they didn't.
Nope, they just had a triple threat match. So they aren't gonna do that gimmick with Mike Bailey right now. He's gonna hit the ultimate weapon on Jake something, and he's gonna qualify. So he's qualifying now. Does that mean that if he qualifies for this match, does that mean he took a spot from somebody? Because as the champion, he would have like been in the match anyway.
You know what? Under normal circumstances, I would agree with that. They've kind of established, like as you go throughout the night, we've kind of established the qualifiers aren't fully set yet.
Mm-hmm.
So him kind of taking a spot, it's kind of him filling a vacancy of, okay, who can we find to fill these spots?
Yeah. Well, I'm just talking about from a kayfabe perspective. Like, you now took not only one guy's spot, you potentially took three different guys' spot that could have been that one guy. So, like, by putting yourself in a triple threat match, you're taking a chance away from three guys. Now that you've won and qualified, So even though you were already going to be in the match, so now they can always just say, well, because of Mike Bailey's insistence that he qualify for his own match, we have a last chance qualifying match, and then something like that. But
Yeah, or you could easily tell the story of, somebody being mad that, hey, this guy's the champion. He's already secured a spot. How is he taking my spot? Like you could tell that's
right, you turn into content too. Yeah, like Labrat says, took his job. These damn Canadians taking American jobs. All right. So speaking of digital media,
we need to get into a pile on the Canadian border and
get in the pile. Did on Explosion, Tasha Steelz beats Giselle Shaw again. This time on like a roll-up deal where she grabbed the ropes and held on. And then she's doing a promo backstage. There are lights in the background. Hashtag turn off the lights. We're just gonna have to bring that hashtag back in full because this show was a mess.
Damore's gone, man.
Yeah, saying. But yeah, Giselle Shaw interrupts Tasha Steelz promo, and then Santino interrupts before we can get some potential fisticuffs that break out. So yeah, Shaw interrupts Steelz, Santino interrupts the fight, and the lights interrupt my sanity, I guess, because it's really hard to focus. They're shining right at me. I don't know. What do you think?
It just felt very. They both tried. It's just the content and the material was just very basic, generic wrestling.
Yeah. Oh, here's basic generic wrestling. Hammerstone says that there's all these guys doing flips and stuff, and he doesn't like it, so he wants to be in one of the X Division Contenders matches.
So he's a bigger white Samoa Joe.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty much it. And speaking of white, here comes Eric Young saying, "We have unfinished business." Do we? Do we have unfinished business with Eric Young? And
I completely forgot about it at the point where I forgot the part of Eric Young stepping in during the punching up.
I don't even remember if did we get how many matches did we get with these guys? The only match I remember is the one where Eric Young won.
Yeah, I think I remember that one.
Did they have a rematch where Hammerstone won? What's the unfinished business?
I don't remember.
Okay. Well then, that's bad. We have unfinished business. I beat you and I want to do it again so I look good. Like what is that it? Or I must just be forgetting the rematch where Hammerstone went over. That probably wiped out of my mind. It's quite possible. These days my mind is a mess. Like I kept calling Eddie Graham Jerry Graham. It's not, I can't always be trusted. That's why I count on the chat to correct me if I make a logistics mistake. But
Jerry Graham, Jerry Zbyszko, Larry Zbyszko, Larry Graham, who cares, pal?
I don't know. How about some Billy Graham? No, not him. The other one. The superstar.
Get me graham crackers, pal.
I am a cracker. All right. So anyway, we'll figure that. All right. Next match is Kushida versus Classic Gresham. This is Gresham Classic. It's just Jonathan Gresham. Still wants to shake hands. Kushida still won't do it. Doesn't trust him. And then these guys have a match. I mean, you could say it's a classic because these guys are good. They had a good match, and the whole time you're kind of waiting for them to do some sort of like oh, where's the other shoe gonna drop? And
Yeah,
I didn't see it drop. Did it drop? Was I looking in the wrong direction?
not no, you're 100% right. Like I was of the exact same mindset. Even like during the watch line, I even said like, okay, we're watching this. The whole intrigue of this match is okay. When's Gresham gonna flip and go into the other character?
Right. Or even just like the hint of like he might have like one cough, perhaps even just one cough, but no.
But at the same time, though, like I think the way they did it worked because like okay, he looks okay for now. What's he gonna be like next week?
Right. Well, yeah. So yeah. Furthermore, to my point, that I was gonna make was it's I like that because I'm tired of seeing the same old wrestling bullshit where they shotgun everything. I want them to sort of take time and make you expect something and then not give it to you. That's what they should be doing this whole time, and that's what TNA notoriously doesn't do.
Right. And even the way they sold it's like, okay, he like the way the announcers sold it, they're saying like, okay, he looks fine for now, but like, oh, there's still like that unease there of like, okay, something still might happen later.
Yep. So I like that, and the match was good. Like I said, it's these guys. They know what they're doing. Kushida wins with a hoverboard lock. So there you go. It's not even like a sort of like a political finish where Gresham has an out or like some heelish thing that he did that backfired or anything. It's just a straight up babyface, and one babyface lost, and that's it.
And that even works for Gresham's character because if like, good Gresham, like normal Gresham loses clean, that motivates Dark Gresham.
Dark Gresham. Yeah. Or is he always Dark Gresham? And this clean version is a disguise. I'm undercover.
That's part of the intrigue. That like
this is my mask.
If it gets you thinking and asking questions, it's doing its job.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I love this part. ABC vignette in their usual like, 1990s VHS hey kids don't do drugs style of promo here. And then Mike Bailey walks in, and then like all the filters and the effects just disappear off the screen, and it's just a normal. I was like, wow, that is some power that the X Division champion wields. He can sneak. Oh my god, we just go for talking about. All right, you guys did some classic pro wrestling stuff here, and we're intrigued now. And then you do this. This guy shuts off special effects when he walks in. It's amazing. I love it. I can't.
Yeah, like interdimensional aliens shutting down nukes.
That's it. That's what happened. That's basically that's what their promo was about. I'm pretty sure. I wasn't listening, but I assume it was. Yeah, but hey, I mean, I listened when Bailey walked in because I saw him, and I was just like, what happened to the border? And he wants to invite both these guys to try to qualify for the Ultimate X match. And then they have a little short discussion. They'll say, we'll think about it. And then they have a little short discussion like, I don't know, last time this kind of caused some friction between us, but I think we'll be all right. Let's do it.
Well, the difference between then and now is they're the tag team chance where it's like, well, if either of us fails, we got this to fall back on.
Right. Somebody's going to be a double champion, though. Can the other person handle that? Being only a single champion? We'll find out.
Yeah, pal.
New website, tnamerch.com. Get all your favorite stuff, like that one shirt and that one toy. Steph is in a hot tub. I don't know, was she on Twitch now or something? Is this some Twitch integrated content here? She's in a hot tub and she gets she tries to call
TNA
PCO.
Wrestling on Twitch, pal.
That's right. That's right, damn it. It probably is on Twitch still. They were doing that for a while, legitimately. She tries to call PCO and it goes straight to voicemail. You know what that means? He ignored that call. It usually rings at least a couple times depending on your settings. Liz says
Yeah,
it's
pal.
hot in the hot tub. James Brown. You killed James Brown. What movie, guys?
I don't remember that one. I'm sorry.
It's gonna be. I'll be impressed. If you guys could get it without Googling, I'd be very impressed.
Because that line sounds familiar. I just don't remember what that's from.
It was in the. I believe it was in the trailer of whatever it is. One more time. You killed James Brown. Okay, that's your last clue. All right. So there's some intrigue. We're on the hook here. What happened to PCO? Why is it going straight to voicemail? He's obviously cheating on his brand new wife. That must be it.
I just saw what it was. Now I know why I remember it.
Okay. All right. Well, it's time for Sonic the Hedgehog. Here's your winner. The Tuxedo, starring Jackie Chan and Jennifer Love Hewitt, of all people. Jordan Grace Open Challenge time, and everybody's like, all right, what NXT jobber is going to come out here and oh, by the way, let's stretch out the Impact Attack content a little bit more for the people who are so kind as to play our movie trivia game and who are with us every week. So recently there was the whole Dustin Rhodes post about, don't use the term jobbers, all this other stuff, right? And, I've heard different people make comments and everything. For the record, I'd just like to say, because again, I respect all you guys as fans and family, whatever you want to call it, listeners. I always tell you people the truth, and I like to pride myself on saying things that I just don't hear other people say, or at least not enough. Make no mistake, if you use the term jobber, that is a slur. There's no other way to look at it. It's just, there is no other opinion. I'm sorry. If you call somebody that, it's the same as calling them whatever name you call them when you're trying to hurt their feelings or whatever. Because you're basically saying you're not even good enough to win fake matches, so you're a jobber. Now, the wrestlers can joke around with each other and call them that, like, oh, I can say it, but you can't say it. If you're a fan and you're trying to talk up to a wrestler and call them a jobber, that's a slur. Okay? Just so you guys know. If you're on social media, commenting on people's posts saying, what do you know, you jobber? Or all the people that call Glenn Gilberti a jobber or irrelevant jobber. You use the term jobber. There's no nice way to say it. If you can think of a compliment that somebody ever gave that had the word jobber in it, go ahead and put that in. But I won't wait too long because it doesn't exist. You only say that when you're trying to insult someone. Brandon, any thoughts?
No, I'm 100% like whenever I hear like Al Snow talk about what a job guy actually was, it's like I get paid to get in the ring and put somebody over. Okay, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, whatever it is. I mean, you could call them enhancement talent. You can call them job guys. You can call them jobbers. You can call them whatever you want, and that's the thing. That's the industry term. That's the locker room talk. That's the stuff that's not privy to fans. So he's really more talking to the fans. And if you're a fan and you call somebody that, just know that that's an insult and know that nobody's ever meant it in any way other than an insult. We're not talking about insulting you like, it's like.
And as far as like, Glenn Gilberti goes, the dude is a one-time cruiserweight champion, two-time TV champion, and a tag team champion at one point. So like, well, to be fair, there's times where you'd put like, belts on guys to give them credibility. So when people go over them, it means something.
Mm-hmm. But, still, we're just talking about We're not talking about the profession. We're just saying it's the same way. Like if you say a racial slur, right, to refer to a type of person, that's like saying jobber. The same way that people can joke around within their race and use the terms, like you could say it because you're that. You could say it, but if someone else calls you that, it's going to be a slur. Like there's nothing nice behind it. That's sort of the analogy. I don't want to make it that extreme to say that, if someone does call you a jobber, don't sell it. If you're a wrestler, don't sell it. Like Dustin Rhodes kind of sold it. And even though I agree with his sentiment, I don't agree with him posting about it. It's just stuff that people should know. Like that's like saying making a post saying, guys, don't use the term jobber. Yeah. Bean counter. Right. Now, maybe people they're not trying to insult people personally, but it's, obviously accountants don't just sit there and count beans. Right.
Yeah, it's just people trying to find something. Oh, here's something I could try to attack somebody else, make myself feel better and elevate myself. That's all it comes down to.
Right. And to that point, that's what I was going to say is like making a post like that, for Dustin Rhodes to make a post like that, which he's entitled to, but it has the same level of effectiveness as saying, guys, be nice to each other. We're all people on this planet. Like, don't be mean. Like, yeah, good luck. Good luck with that. Of course, the people that are mean are going to come out and be like, of course a jobber would say this, or whatever they would reply. Like, you're not going to change anybody's life by making a post like that. You just make yourself seem like you're selling for everybody doing the thing that you're talking about.
Right. And with somebody with like Dustin, he's somebody who's been around the block, who's been like, who should know, like, don't sell for these guys. But at the same time, like, it really feels like he himself has reached a breaking point.
Yeah, I'm sure he has, and that's why I said he gets a pass from me. I'm not mad that he made the post. Just know that, it's futile to try to control.
Yeah. That's one of those things where it's like you kind of wish you could be in Dustin's ear and be like, bro, I get it. We've all had enough of these people, but like with your position, who you are and what you've done, you kind of gotta rise above that, man.
Yeah. And I, just what I said would have been just as effective of a post, because you only want to, every time you post anything on social media, you're just sharing yourself, whatever you think, with people. That's the whole idea of it. Even if people don't care what you think, you're still out there posting it. So if you're doing that, the more effective way to do it would have been like, to say what I said. Make no mistake, if you are a civilian and you're talking to a wrestler, jobber is a slur. That's all you would have had to post. That way it's like, hey, I told you, do it at your own risk. If you want to do it, but just know this is not looked upon kindly. Gets the same point across, lets your feelings be known. Like that's what Dustin Rhodes thinks. But when you get all like nice and preachy about it, people tend to like, turn on you a little bit.
Or they see it as a weakness and they can walk all over you.
Yep. All right. So speaking of which, Grace's open challenge, answered by Rosemary. It's Rosemary. Here she is, homeless Rosemary with her hoodie and her knapsack. Which,
to be fair, I'll say her answering that challenge kind of added a little bit of an intrigue. It's like, okay, this is Rosemary with a new character and a new gimmick, so we're not sure how this finish is going to go.
That's right. Well, you keep saying to be fair. I'm not trying to be unfair to Rosemary. I just said that's who it was. But here's where I'll be unfair to Rosemary. So she, in the knapsack, is it's a cleaver. She pulls a cleaver out of the knapsack.
Right. She showed Chekhov's gun, but she didn't fire it.
She brandished this cleaver. It was in the dark, so it wasn't as shiny as it could have been. The lights were still off, but
like even the TV viewing audience could clearly see, okay, she's got a fucking Michael Myers butcher knife.
Yeah. They called it a butcher knife, but it's a cleaver. Make no mistake, guys. It's not even the knife that she pulled on the concierge that time, which was like some kind of a weird dagger or something. It's not a it's and it's not a butcher knife like Tom called it. It's a meat cleaver. It was square. I even ran it back to make sure I didn't see it, like it wasn't like an optical illusion with the angle of the camera or something. I was like, nope, she's gonna she's gonna work at a deli with that.
They're filming in the UK.
Uh, what knives and sharp things are allowed in TNA? Yeah. So yeah, so she had it. She's like, look what I got, and then all right, let's wrestle.
Yeah, exactly. That's a huge disconnect.
Unless,
Huge.
but to be fair, I watched this thinking, okay, she's a homeless demon psycho with a meat cleaver, and she's probably going to do headlock, tackle, drop down. But she didn't. Everything she did in the match for the most part was something that you might do if you were fighting somebody. There wasn't an excessive amount of rope running. There wasn't a lot of wrestling moves. It was a lot of striking. And the times that she did grab her, it would be like the head scissor, which was like she was choking her with her legs. Or the one move that you could kind of be called a wrestling move was she threw her with a German suplex. But
that felt more like, okay, I got to get her down, and here's where I'm at to get it done.
Yeah, so she was fighting like her character. So that's where I give Rosemary credit and Jordan for working the match that way. Jordan's doing the stuff that she normally does, but of course
right,
she
like
would.
yeah, Jordan's being a wrestler because that's kind of who her character is. She is a wrestler.
Right. And Rosemary's, I mean, she's in a controlled environment and everything, and she's doing like, punches, kicks, jumping on her and like, but she's more like a wild animal than like like an Olympic wrestler or something like that. So they worked the match pretty good in that aspect of it, but it didn't end up mattering in the end because Ash by Elegance shows up and the concierge, of course, and she's got her pink kendo stick. So I don't know what Lish and Kendra have to say about that, but
I said the exact same thing as soon as I saw it.
Yeah, it's like, well, mine's pink, so it's different. But so anyway, she comes in.
Did she already have her own like a specific weapon with those brass knuckles with gems on them?
Yes, she had the bejeweled knuckles, and so I guess that just wasn't visual enough. So let's have a pink kendo stick, because everything about you screams kendo, right? The Japanese art of sword fighting practice. Definitely Ash by Elegance is the first person I think of when I think of that. Here's the worst part. Besides that, it doesn't really matter. Whatever your object is that you want to interfere with, okay, fine. But the concierge draws the referee's attention away, and she whacks both of them with the stick. And
why need to draw the ref's attention for that? Just walk in and waffle both of them. Screw the ref.
Right, because he just turns around, looks at it, like he didn't just hear it, looks at it. He even, oh my God, this is why everybody needs to be sat down in that locker room and chewed out. This motherfucker, whatever ref this is, I have his face in my mind, but I don't know their names. He actually turned around, saw Ash, turned back to the concierge, then turned back around and did the double take like, huh? Have you so you turned too early, and instead of just being like, oh shit, I turned too early, well, we got to go with it now. He turned back around, pretended like he didn't see it, then turned around again, saw it the way he was supposed to see it. Let me tell you something, brother. It doesn't matter, because if the finish is you seeing it, it doesn't matter when you see it. The concierge, like Brandon said, never had to be up on the apron in the first place because she's hitting both of them anyway. She's not trying to help one or the other. She's trying to attack both. So she could slide in full view of you and hit both of them, and you could disqualify or throw the match out. Why are we wasting time trying to do a distraction? And why does this stuff always happen in her matches? Like or her appearances? Because this like when I was saying when she what was that thing she did? Oh yeah, when she just like kicked the shit out of she kicked the shit out of somebody that she went over on afterwards, and I was just like, who is this? Oh, it's a Havoc actually, which could explain why Rosemary. At least that ties in, like why
I
Rosemary's so
think that
obsessed
is,
with her.
yeah, I think that is actually the story behind it.
Yeah, but she beat she beat Havoc and then kicked the shit out of her afterwards, and it's like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Right.
So
If Ashley Elegance can beat the shit out of Havoc by herself, why does she need help?
yeah, I don't understand. So it's always something with Ash by Elegance. So that makes me wonder if she has like creative input, or if the maybe the agent or producer assigned to her stuff is like coming up with ideas that just somehow are weird or get screwed up in the process. But goddamn, these refs, man. That's the second time I've caught a ref catching somebody and then not catching them. Like, oops, I looked like that, in the past few months. So I just I gotta say that. It doesn't go anywhere after that. It's just Ash by Elegance stands tall. Any other thoughts on that whole gimmick? No.
Nah, I thought they could have done something interesting there with Rosemary, but I thought the interference of Ash did at least make sense because she got heat with both of them.
Yeah, it makes sense. They just did it wrong. Bound for Glory this year is going to be in Detroit at Wayne State University Fieldhouse. It has a capacity of 3,000 people. Let's see if they can do it.
Yeah, pal.
Josh Alexander's in the ring finally, and he doesn't walk out. He actually gets a microphone and says things for a while, and then he calls out Dolph Ziggler. I'm condensing this greatly, like it probably will be on the punching up. He called out Dolph, but essentially all you need to know is that he gets super kicked, and Dolph says, "I will end you next week." Man, next week is pretty hot. We got a potential TNA title match and that Santana and Moose, huh?
Potentially, who knows, pal? We'll see. Tune in next week. Same Impact time, same Impact channel. Yeah, pal.
And will Jonathan Gresham be the Dark Octopus? Tune in next week. All right, we're still here this week though. We're not done yet. So yeah, right after this, when we come back from break, Santino makes a match between Josh Alessandro and Nick Nemeth. And Frankie Kazarian, the king of TNA, objects to this, saying, "Why does he get a title shot? I should get a title shot." And whatever. He bet on himself, so he's gonna have to get a title shot, right?
Gotta bet on yourself, pal.
Okay. Then we have another qualifier for the X Division Ultimate X match. It's Zachary Wentz versus KC Navarro versus Stone Cold Dante Chen. He didn't quite get the Austin coming in to help Mick Foley win the title on Raw pop. That he gets
Gonna
in NXT,
come in here, drink some sake, and whip some ass. Oh hell yeah!
That's right.
Or what is it? Dim sum. Sorry.
Well, he's from Singapore, so what do they?
Oh shit! Fuck! I get
So,
shit. I went from Japanese to Chinese, and it's even since from Singapore. Fuck.
He's from Singapore, and I don't know if they have a signature drink, but yeah, for some reason, all of a sudden, the people in the performance center really started getting behind Dante Chen for no real reason. But good for him. And when he comes out, he's clearly has the most presence and TV experience of all these people. Like he looks like somebody, and the people are kind of cheering.
Right, and he actually has like a costume and is trying to play up to his character.
Right, he's got a costume. He's got a good not even a costume. He just looks. He's got a nice robe. That's professional looking. He's dancing to his music, like to the beat of his music. He's got his entrance down,
The
and he looks like a
his
star because he's big and jacked.
his presentation is definitely there.
Right. And then Zachary Wentz wins the match. So it's like, whoa, well, kind of feel like Dante Chen should have won the match, right? Because Zachary Wentz works there already, and he ain't winning that X Division title, and no one thinks he will. No one's gonna think that Dante Chen would probably win it, even if he was in the match. But there's more intrigue there. If an NXT guy gets in the Ultimate X match, then it would give him experience of having an Ultimate X match, which is not experience that I would personally want, but maybe he would. And then if if in the match you can tease spots where you think, oh my God, is he really going to win it? And then that makes the match more interesting. So I see a lot more business on Dante Chen winning this, since Zachary Wentz is clearly not going to win that match. I don't think any outsider's going to win. I think Bailey's going to retain it, certainly. But
you could have protected Wentz by having Wes Lee run in and fuck him over.
Right. Could have. But, let's not get too crazy. He'd have to go through a time loop to interfere in this match, probably.
You know what? I'll give for so far, like that with the partnership with TNA and NXT, they've at least like done a pretty decent job, like laying out and structuring the shows where like they kind of stick with each other's storylines.
Yeah.
Has it been perfect? No, but at least the effort and attempt is there.
Right. Well, at least nobody's shown up on the wrong program playing the wrong character at the time, right? So at least it's not like Wes Lee was on this episode being a babyface still.
Right, like act like he's still part of the Rascals, exactly.
So that's just my opinion. Nothing, like, I don't particularly have anything against Zachary Wentz, except all the stuff I have against him, and I don't have anything particularly for Dante Chen. Casey Navarro's the guy in the middle that you also know isn't going to win. He's just a guy that you see around from time to time.
We need a warm body. Get in here, pal.
Yeah, pretty much. So, all right. Here's where we have the short film about to conclude, or at least for this week, conclude the Steph DeLander and PCO mystery. As she's in her hotel room waiting for PCO, and it gets a knock at the door, and sure enough, it's Matt Cardona again. And she's like, get out of here. And then all right. And then next thing you know, we cut down to, like, I guess what's like right outside the hotel, like on the grass area in the front, where, like, he's got PCO down with who was there with him? I forget.
Just two random dudes.
Oh, it was just random dudes? Oh,
yeah, okay. We didn't see who it was.
All right. So he got two dudes.
Yeah, we saw PCO being held down, his face in the grass, and then, Cardona shows up and starts screaming at him.
Yep. So, I got one question. Was the person that was in with Steph the whole time, while she was in her lingerie, while she was in the hot tub, while she was on the bed, that person with the camera, and then the one that filmed her opening the door to find Matt Cardona, was that the same guy that they cut to when they went down to the ground level, or was that two different cameramen?
Man, that's a good question. Because maybe
you see what I'm getting at here?
I 100% see what you're getting at.
It's bad enough that you just have this camera there, like you're acknowledging.
Like, I would have to think, like, unless Matt had his phone set up to film what was going on with PCO while he was upstairs, and the camera person that Steph hired happened to be somebody that she knew, that's like the only thing I could think of that would make sense.
Well, what doesn't make sense to me is how you go to all the trouble and all the effort to get something like this done and then still be so lazy about the logic behind it. You don't just go somewhere and film something and then you're done in 10 minutes. It takes hours to do something that's even like only going to be like a minute or two of footage. It takes hours to do things like this. You have to go there first of all. That counts. Then you got to like set up the thing. You got to block it out. You got to rehearse it a couple times. You got to film it. Maybe you film it and you didn't get it right. You got to film it again. Maybe you get it in the sound. You have to do the sound over because, and it's TNA, so you know they're gonna fuck up the sound at least once or twice. So they're gonna have to redo that part. They got to cut this. They got to film all this stuff. Then they got to edit it together. All this stuff and this time they do, and then somewhere in between the hotel room scene and the ground floor scene, they're just like, all right, we'll just cut. Like we'll just cut. No problem. We'll skip all the stuff in the middle. It's bad enough that you had a cameraman just filming her in her fucking panties or whatever. Like that's just, oh yeah, this is what I want everybody to watch my honeymoon. I want to watch this zombie fucking bang me, right? Like that's bad enough that you got a person filming that.
Agreed. I don't agree with the logic, but I think that what they were going for was like Steph wanted this to be filmed and showed and displayed. Again, what kind of couple would actually want that to be aired? Yeah, we can talk about that all day long, but I think that,
Right.
but I believe that was established at least.
But even if we want to go along and suspend our disbelief for that, why not have the camera guy follow Matt Cardona down afterwards? Because that way it seems like you're more in the moment and it builds the tension. Like, why are we following him? Where's he going? What's he doing?
Right. You have Seth Delano's cameraman follow him all the way down through the hotel, and then you go out into the lawn where you see his boys holding PCO down, and then he starts talking shit to him, maybe even lays in a few shots to him.
Right. And you can even have Steph be like, "Where are you going?" Like to the cameraman, or you could even say, "Follow him."
Have her, yeah, she could follow him, screaming at him like, "What are you doing? What's going on?" And then while he's beating on PCO, she tries to step in and get between them. Maybe, and here's how you end it: he punches her in the face. That's where you go off. Go off.
That's gonna hurt too. She's got a lot of shit in her face and teeth. But yeah. So I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like you have, even though it's stupid, you could still salvage it somewhat. And why do you want to do all this work if you're not going to do that? Why are you going to do all this work and then still be lazy? It doesn't make sense to me. Either be lazy and don't do this at all, or go the full nine when you do it. And then, it's just that simple. Like, even if you didn't want Steph at the bottom, just have her say like, don't lose him. I'm going to get dressed. Cause she's ready for, well, you know what she's ready for. She's not ready for going outside. So she could say, I'm going to get dressed. Don't lose him. Like follow him. And then the cameraman follows him. He goes down the stairs, whatever,
Or she throws on a robe and goes after him.
Right. It's not that hard. It wouldn't have been that much more to just do it. And it would have felt much more in the moment, immediate, urgent. Whatever.
This is why I like talking with you. Like, I wish I could talk with you before I do the punching up, because like the stuff that you throw at me when I start throwing stuff at you is like, it would have made the show so much better.
Well, look, you're a big Vince Russo fan, so just go back to this. If this were real, and then you already know what I'm going to say after that, because that's the first thing I'm going to think of. It's funny because sometimes Russo says, if this were real, yeah, I'll get to that in a second. Sometimes if Russo says if this were real, and then he does something that's also not real that nobody would do, but that's still where his brain will go first. He wants to go to logic first. Okay, what would we do here? And instead of doing something that pro wrestling would do, think of what would happen if this were a thing that were happening. Like, not that, oh, this is just fake wrestling, so we're gonna just do some cinematic bullshit. How about, okay, well, if we're out here with a camera, what would we do if we were out here with a camera and this happened? Like what?
Right. Yeah. As soon as Matt Cardona comes to her door and says, "Hey, I took out your new husband," she's telling the cameraman who's in a room, "Hey, follow me. Let's see what's going on."
Right. So yeah, Liz says, dude, if she was really worried, you run out and screw the rest. Well, we know that would happen, but I'm just saying, those are the kind of things people could talk about and then make the decisions, but it doesn't, whatever they did, just not this. Now we have a singles match. It is Wolfgang from Gallus versus Joe Hendry. We believe in Joe Hendry. Man who's more over in NXT than in his own company. It's funny, they had him first, and yet the NXT was so excited to see him and continue to have him back.
Yep, and I actually went to go look this up during our watch along last night. He is actually signed to TNA till the end of 2025.
There you go.
Which is, if WWE knows they're going to get him when his contract expires, smart of them to run him through NXT without having to sign him in NXT.
Well, that's a great deal, unprecedented in modern times. But anyway, he has a match here with Wolfgang. This is just so Joe Hendry can beat a member of Gallus. It doesn't make sense why Gallus would let Wolfgang go by himself and not offer any backup, but hey, whatever. We're not talking about what would really happen here. Or we're not even talking about, how like TNA's like, hey, we're not happy about Gallus kicking the shit out of one of our contracted talents over there. We're trusting you. We're trusting you to handle our athletes with better hospitality than to get the shit kicked out of him by 3 guys. So Wolfgang's allowed here. The Coffee Brothers are banned. They could have just said that. Like Santino could have said that. The announcers could have said that. I don't think they said that. It would have been just that easy. Just a few words to cover up any plot holes that there may develop. But nah, it's just a match. Joe Hendry wins. He's cool. He's Joe Hendry. We believe. Any thoughts on the match?
I mean, it was all right. It's basically a get over match for Hendry.
Right. And then we end the show with a pull apart backstage. It's Santana and the system kind of going at it, and we got security on the scene. They're going to make sure that these guys don't get too out of line. There was something I noticed about this. Before I go to it, I'll ask you what you thought about it, because you might have noticed the same thing.
I do not know. I apologize.
So you didn't punch this up or anything, or nothing.
It completely went under my radar with what you might be talking about. I apologize.
Well, like I said, we got security here for this pull apart. I could be wrong. I did my best. It was kind of chaotic. I'll give them that. In their defense, they did a chaotic little short. This was a very short, like maybe 20, 30 seconds to end the show. It was not like a big extended thing. It was like the main event was definitely supposed to be Joe Hendry versus Wolfgang, and then they're like, we're getting some, I'm hearing we're having some commotion in the back, one of those type of things, and then they go off the air. So it's not long, and it was very chaotic. So I did my best to count. So I may have had the count wrong, but what it looked like to me was that you had 5 security guards holding back the entire system, minus Lish. So Moose, Eddie, Dango, and Myers. And you had 4 security guards holding back Santana by himself.
Yeah, that's a little lopsided. But you know what,
if it was just Moose and Santana and the system wasn't around, I don't know if 5 is enough for Moose. If 4 is what Santana gets.
To be, you know what? Interestingly enough, that actually kind of gets covered in the punching up.
Interesting.
I wasn't planning for that, but like now that I think about it, that actually gets covered.
Well, let's waste no time. Let's get right to it. Let's punch this Impact in the face.
Yeah, pal. All right, let me pull this up right quick. All righty. So we get right to it with our recap and hold on, let me get the right one. Our catch-up packets. Then we go right into intro, pyro, and ballyhoo. Announce table, rundown card for tonight. Talk about recent events, give their thoughts. Entering with the system music and entrance. Condensed version of promo on the show. And then Mike Santana appears on the screen to interrupt. He cuts a promo on Moose and tells him that him and the rest of the system to watch their backs tonight. We go to a pre-tape of Steph DeLander at her hotel. Same as on the show with her welcoming everyone to her honeymoon. Then we go to our first commercial break. We come backstage with the TNA digital media. We're not going to call it an exclusive, it's digital media content of Santino and Mike Bailey. Same as on the show. We go backstage with Gia and Jonathan Gresham. Same as on the show with Kushida not trusting Gresham. Then we go to match number 1, Trent Seven versus Jake Something versus Mike Bailey. Jake Something music and entrance, Trent Seven music and entrance, Mike Bailey music and entrance. Condensed version of the match, but with a finish that builds some tension between Bailey and Seven. Then we go to our replay with Tasha Steelz versus Giselle Shaw from Explosion. We cut that replay down immensely to where we just see the last 10 seconds of the finish and the aftermath. Then we go to the pre-tape of Tasha Steelz and Giselle Shaw. Same as on the show, but with better material than what we got. Then we go backstage to the System's locker room. JDC says that he's going to his car to get something. As JDC is walking through the backstage area, he gets jumped by Mike Santana. We go to our second commercial break. Replay, Santana attacking JDC. We go backstage to the System's locker room. Moose says he's going to find Santana and end this tonight. Pre-tape, Steph DeLander's hotel room. Steph holds up a bottle of wine and puts it on ice before she starts running the water for her jacuzzi. We go to match number 2, Jonathan Gresham versus Kushida. Kushida music and entrance, Jonathan Gresham music and entrance, condensed version of the match on the show. We go backstage with Hammerstone and Santino, same as on the show, but with, the changes we talked about. Backstage, ABC and Bailey, same as on the show. Backstage, Moose. Moose is looking for Santana. We go to a pre-tape of Steph DeLander's hotel room. She's in the jacuzzi, calls PCO, and she gets voicemail. Third commercial break, match number 3, Jordan Grace open challenge for Knockouts title. Jordan Grace music and entrance, Rosemary music and entrance, condensed version of match on the show with Ash and Concierge interfering. But instead of using the kendo stick and stealing Alicia's gimmick, she uses the jeweled knuckles.
And the ref just sees it.
Of course, because who cares? She doesn't care who wins. She just wants to beat both women up. We go backstage with the Rascals. Trey gets Wentz hyped for his qualifier match. Bailey approaches the Rascals and gives them a pep talk before he says he'd like to see Trey in one of the qualifier matches. Basically, he kind of says, hey, I know what's going on with you guys. I know our history together, but hey, you've been some of my best opponents. You guys have the same pep talk he gave to
ABC, yeah.
ABC, yeah. So you go to match number 4, Zachary Wentz versus Casey Navarro versus Dante Chen. Zachary Wentz wins music and entrance to Trey Miguel. Casey Navarro music and entrance. Dante Chen music and entrance. Condensed version of the match on the show with Zachary Wentz going over. We go to a pre-tape of Steph DeLander's hotel room. She starts getting concerned about PCO. She gets a text message from PCO that he is on his way. You go backstage with Josh Alexander. He's headed to the ring. He bumps into Santino. They get into a quick argument before Josh resumes walking to the ring. Fourth commercial break. End ring, Josh Alexander. Josh Alexander music and entrance. Same promos on the show. Nick Nemeth music and entrance. The confrontation goes the same as on the show. Then we go backstage with Santino and Frankie Kazarian, same as on the show. Then you go backstage again. Rosemary, Crazy Steve. Rosemary cuts a promo about how she wants to eliminate Ash and her concierge. Crazy Steve approaches Rosemary. Crazy Steve says that maybe he and Rosemary can help each other out. Backstage, the System's locker room. JDC enters the locker room and wonders where Moose and Myers were, or I'm sorry, not Moose and Myers. Myers and Edwards were at. Myers and Edwards get angry and ask JDC what he's talking about. JDC says that he got jumped by Santana. Edwards says all three of them are going to go find and beat down Santana and deliver him to Moose. And the three of them enter the locker room. Santana jumps them from behind.
I keep
with
thinking
a chair.
we're going to get Santino's twin sister on this show.
I'm sorry, guys. I apologize.
also, by the way, Myers and Edwards were in catering when he got jumped. It's a no-brainer.
Of course. So then Santana jumps from behind with a chair and lays all three men out. Pre-tape, Seth Delander's hotel room, extended version of what we got on the show when with a little bit of extra where Matt Cardona enters the locker or the hotel room, the honeymoon suite, and starts helping himself to, the bar, the mini bar, the catering, throws a few more one-liners in there.
Yeah.
Extended version.
Mm-hmm.
Then we go to our fifth and final commercial break. New Japan hype video. Go to the announce table. Run down the card for next week's show as current card for Emergence. Match number 5, Wolfgang versus Joe Hendry. Wolfgang music and entrance. Joe Hendry music and entrance. Condensed version of match on the show. End it backstage. Moose and Santana. Extended version of match of what we saw on the show with them talking to trash to each other, which then leads to a brawl and go off the air with neither man on top. Just Moose and Santana beating the shit out of each other.
I see. Well, that's better. You remove the system from that whole thing and leave more security guards for the two guys.
Right, because Santana took him out earlier.
That's right. And I'm sure that even on his way, as he was crawling, trying to recover himself, Fat Eddie still grabbed a sandwich off the table that he could eat while he was on the floor.
And of course, Lish coming behind him saying, "Hey, give me a piece of that."
He just pulls a piece of lettuce off the sandwich and hands it to her. Well, there it was. That was your refreshed, revamped version of Impact from TNA. So, I think we've had just about enough tonight. We've given you guys a lot. We've had a lot of fun. We appreciate everyone here. We believe. I think you should believe that you can find us other places on the internet. Brandon, where is that for you?
As always, you can find me on Twitter, or as the kids call it these days, the X at LG Brandon Whoop. The Twitch channel is still under construction. It's twitch.tv/LG Brandon Whoop Whoop. And I'm also on Substack at HMG Brandon. And of course, I'm, doing as many watch alongs as I can for HMG on the YouTube and the Ridiculously Random Twitch. This week's schedule looks like we're going to be doing a late start of AEW Dynamite on Wednesday. We're going to be doing SmackDown on Friday. Not really sure about Saturday. I might try to pull something together. It might not be wrestling. It might just be some kind of random show, but just something for us to come together and hang out and watch. We'll see. Not 100% sure on that. And then if something's starting to become a tradition of doing the TNA watch along on Sunday, we'll be doing that. So we'll see you then, guys. Much love. Whoop whoop.
All right, sounds good. So then, I guess you can find me at Opinion Haver on all your favorite social media platforms, just like you always have been able to. You can find me every Wednesday for the Next Level Wrestling Review with Big Ray Hernandez, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll continue to cover the crossover between NXT and TNA. That's the NXT side. We'll see. You never know when Joe Hendry or somebody else could show up on NXT, which in Joe Hendry's case, I think he just works there now. But if you want to talk about AEW, for example, then what better place than with myself and Jimmy T every Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. on Wreckage. Uh, well,
Wee
we talk.
woo, wee woo.
Wee woo, wee
Oh
woo.
my
Yeah.
God.
New guys in the corner puking his guts out.
All because you wanted to save a couple extra pennies.
That's right. So, all because you wanted to watch Collision on Saturday night. So we're there to sift through the wreckage of that Collision and talk about a bunch of other stuff. So check us out there. Check out Wrestling with Rip Rogers every concrete whenever day they come. I'll tell you how you know when you can always watch Rip Rogers live, and that is to go to that channel. Make sure you subscribe and click the bell and make sure you turn your notifications on. That way, whenever their time isn't concrete, you'll still be notified and you'll be ready to drop whatever you're doing, rush home and put it up on the big screen and put your feet up and enjoy it. I'll be interested to see what he says about Kevin Sullivan this week. So looking forward to that. And then, of course, JTG, good news for JTG. He just got his memberships open. So if you want to financially support JTG, you could do there as well by becoming a member. And I'm sure you'll get some exclusive content. Not sure what that is yet, but that's the latest happenings on the JTG channel at Jay the God. You are now rocking with the God. Chia. And that just about does it for the plugs. And so for Brandon, I'm the vet, and I don't have a sign off line.